Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. Ashley Benefield was found guilty by a jury at 10:30 p.m. last night, and Crime Talk brought it to you live. Richard Allen's motions hearings have started. A lot of arguing, but not a lot of rulings. Rex Heuermann's wife has showed up to a discovery hearing. Oh, and probably because she's being paid to be there. Horrific killer gets sentenced. Not enough time for this guy. A weird abduction case with a father in California, and a murder near my house. Yes, swell. I can hardly wait. A stupid law in Louisiana is going to have some unintended consequences, and they've already started. And guess what? We have another dumb criminal of the day, as if we could ever run out of them. Let's talk about it.
Lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and you know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, hit that little bell for notifications, and remember, you can listen to us anytime on any of your favorite podcasting app. Yes, we just went over 266,000 subscribers, and I think we've now gone over 7 million views as well, probably closer to 8 million views. Who would have thought? Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and get to the docket for July 31st, 2024. Can you believe the end of July is already here? The year is almost over. Unbelievable. It's gone by so fast. Anyway, like I said, the case of Ashley Benefield. We brought you the case live last night at 10:30 Eastern time because that's what we do here at Crime Talk. Well, that's what Frank does. We just happened to be here because we did our Tuesday night live show, but then we did our Patreon show, and then we had to jump over to the Ashley Benefield. First, the jury was hung. Then they came back and said, no, we want to continue to deliberate, and they came back guilty. That's right. So the former ballerina accused of fatally shooting her wealthy husband appeared a little unemotional when she was found guilty of manslaughter in a Florida courtroom, like I said last night, about 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. Now, Ashley Benefield stood trial for the second-degree murder, for charges of second-degree murder, of her husband, Doug Benefield, in the case known as the Black Swan murder. And the trial received, obviously, a lot of attention. We brought it to you. Did I mention that we brought it to you live at 10:30 last night when the jury came back and her bond was revoked and she was sent to jail? Anyway, after nearly 7 hours of deliberations, the jury found her guilty of discharging the firearm that killed her estranged husband in her mother's Lakewood Ranch home back on September 27th of 2022. In self-defense, despite prosecution arguing that she had planned his murder. Now, Doug Benefield's daughter, Eva, was in tears as the jury read its verdict. The ex-ballerina has stuck to her claim that her ex-husband attacked her the night that he showed up to her house unannounced. Anyway, the couple met at a political event back in August of 2016. Now, Ashley was a trained ballerina, and she was 24 at the time, and Douglas Benefield, who had worked in the defense and private equity sector, was 54 years old. Anyway, they tied the knot after only 13 days of courting each other, and guess what? She became pregnant with their first child soon after a failed business venture. All within a year of being married, they apparently reversed Doug's vasectomy, got pregnant, started a ballet company, and it went defunct. Their relationship began to deteriorate during the time that Ashley was pregnant, and then she ultimately left their home in South Carolina and moved to Florida, where she was staying with her mother. Now, they continued this long-distance relationship for a little bit, and they tried to keep the communication going, but it didn't work out. Anyway, she began making complaints to local law enforcement about being the victim of non-physical domestic violence soon after she moved to Florida. Now, her defense attorney argued that she was trapped in an abusive relationship, claiming that Doug was a manipulative, controlling, abusive man whom she killed in self-defense in fear for her and their young daughter. On the day of the shooting, when Douglas Benefield was there to help Ashley pack up, her attorneys claimed that the visit turned violent. Now, the defense argued that he was angry when he arrived at the house because he knew their relationship was ending, And the ex-ballerina alleged Doug threatened and then shoved her during the visit. The estranged husband then allegedly slapped her in the face, and she fled into the bedroom, grabbed her gun for safety, according to her attorney and her testimony. And when Doug allegedly followed her into the room, where she yelled at him to stop before she fatally shot him. She testified, quote, "I thought he was going to kill me." However, investigators later found no sign that she had been physically abused or that she was acting in self-defense, and that she had fired 4 rounds from the .45 caliber handgun, hitting her ex-husband, twice. Anyway, detectives said that based upon where Doug was hit, it doesn't appear as though he was facing Ashley when she began shooting. Now, prosecutors told the jury during Tuesday's afternoon closing arguments that to accept Ashley's self-defense claim, they would have to find her actions reasonable and necessary. The prosecution argued that Ms. Benefield killed her former partner because she wanted sole custody of their daughter, and the defendant used domestic violence allegations to make progress on her goal. She wanted sole custody of her child, and she was willing to do it at all costs, the prosecutor argued. Well, after the verdict was announced, the judge who was overseeing the case, who actually did a very good job. As you can see, most murder cases don't take weeks. This could have been done Friday had the defense had their act together with their expert. Swear to God, that's how fast this case could have been done. Anyway, the judge revoked her bond that she had been released upon, and she will remain there in custody awaiting sentencing. Now, the prosecutor last night said, hey, revoke her bond. Circumstances have changed. She's now been convicted, which makes her now presumptively a flight risk. And the prosecutors last night said that she was facing up to 30 years for a maximum sentence. I've seen different reports that say it's 15. We'll try to clarify that by tomorrow. Anyway, did I mention CrimeTalk brought it to you live, and we were here to take the verdict? Yeah, Frank and I here. The name you can trust, ladies and gentlemen, the name you can trust, CrimeTalk. All right, next on the docket, the Delphi murders. The motions hearings have started in the Richard Allen case, and he is back in court in a Carroll County courthouse for the next several days for motions, which could shape, obviously, how this case is going to proceed. Now, the early session of day 2, Allen's defense attorneys continued to argue that him being in solitary confinement at the prison deteriorated his mental health. Therefore, whatever he said cannot be trusted. Now, Mr. Allen was video monitored while in solitary confinement and also had 8 fellow inmates assigned to watch him. Now, the inmates were supposed to not speak with Mr. Allen, but they did. Anyway, they claim that Allen was coerced into confessing while in the facility, all in violation of his 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights under the United States Constitution and the applicable state Constitution provisions as well. Anyway, the prosecution said, not so fast, Mr. Defendant Allen. Defense claims that the inmates and the prison guards were actors and forced to make Mr. Allen confess. They said that Allen was never interrogated and that his verbal and written confessions were of his own accord, i.e., voluntary. There's nothing to indicate that these people that were there to monitor him just to make sure he doesn't hurt himself, or if he did, to let somebody know, were necessarily a government agent that was interrogating him. Now, certainly he was in custody, but they're not a government agent. But I think that the defense motion is going to be denied on this one, and the judge will say the statements come in and the jury can hear all the circumstances surrounding it, and they can decide what weight they want to give those statements. Now, what they would want to hear was that over the course of 2 months, Richard Allen was to have made 61 murder confessions. Now, the confessions started 7 months after arriving at the prison, and it included statements like, "I killed those 2 girls." Clearly not good statements for the defense. Clearly statements that shouldn't be coming out of a defendant's mouth, particularly if he's in fact innocent. Big problem for the defense. Anyway, during Tuesday hearing, The defense and the state prosecutors also argued over the pieces of evidence that the state want to be omitted from the courtroom, such as geofencing, a theory that Odinism played a role in the killing, and other possible suspects. And the defense claimed that the police were negligent and purposely didn't follow leads on third-party suspects. They were also pushed for Allen to be moved from solitary confinement at the Indiana Department of Corrections to the Carroll County Jail in attempts at improving his mental state and making it easier to communicate with his attorneys. Now, the motion to dismiss the case was on the table, but it was unclear what the final ruling would be on that. I can tell you it's going to be denied. Judge Frances C. Gull has not granted literally any motion for the defense. She's not going to start now. But then you also have to realize oftentimes the defense has very bad facts, and the law is always written in favor of the prosecution. So don't be surprised when the defense loses. But hey, I've literally lost every motions hearing and won a trial because it comes down to facts at trial. Next on the docket, Rex Heuermann, the Gilgo Beach serial killer. Well, he's back in court to resolve some discovery disputes, and everybody's interested in his estranged wife. That's right. She showed up wearing her engagement ring for the alleged 6-time murderer's latest court appearance. Now, she was accompanied by her attorney, another member of her legal team, and her emotional support dog, Stuart. Her daughter was not present with her. Now, Miss Elrup married to Mr. Heuermann for 27 years. They have a daughter together, and Mr. Heuermann was also the stepfather to Christopher Sheridan, who was Elrup's son from a previous marriage. Now, remember, Elrup filed a motion for divorce after the July 2023 arrest. But then in March, she sent a statement through her attorney that stated that she will maintain that Rex is not capable of the crimes which he is accused of committing. And I will listen to all of the evidence and withhold judgment until the end of the trial, she noted in that statement, and said, I have given him the benefit of the doubt as we all deserve. That's right. We will give him the benefit of the doubt. She filed for divorce, but then when she got that documentary deal, where I think she's going to get paid up to $1 million, suddenly she had a little more interest in the case. You would think she would be saying, see ya. Well, maybe after she collects her $1 million, she'll say see ya, but for now, it's supposedly going to be good TV. Well, the district attorney handling the case made a statement afterwards in regards to what was taking place. He explained that obviously there's a lot of discovery. They have 6 murders, which have all alleged to have been made by the defendant, so we look forward to doing this in court and providing everything that we need. And he explained how comprehensive this task is because the first murder goes back to 1993, 2003, 2007, 2009, and 2 in 2010. Then the missing persons files, phone work, lab work, underlying data, and forensic and electronic evidence obviously has to be provided. And they have to get it all from all these various jurisdictions. So all the work the investigations team did, all of the notes, all of those notebooks the detectives worked on in Maine and Connecticut, where missing persons cases were originated, all have to be discovered. So they think they're going to do whatever they need to do to get all the discovery, which they should in fact do. I'm a little surprised they didn't already have that in a file somewhere along the way. Hey, agent handling the case back in 1993 in Connecticut, where the missing person case came forward, can you send me that information, please, so I can have a complete file in my file? Why they don't do this stuff, I do not know. And frankly, it was easier back in the 90s and early 2000s because there wasn't so much damn paper and digital. People wrote less. Anyway, next, a brutal murderer gets sentenced. So the brutal death of Christina Una Lee rocked the Big Apple due to the inexplicable nature and the disturbing brutality of the murder. Now, the woman's killer, Asamad Nash, the guy was 27 years old, apparently for no clear reason, slowly stabbed her to death over an hour, inflicting at least 40 wounds on the victim. Now, this occurred at a time where there was intense fear in the Asian communities throughout the 5 boroughs in New York due to an exponential increase in anti-Asian hate crimes throughout 2021. At the time of her death, Miss Lee was actively working to raise awareness of and be an advocate for stopping hate crimes against Asians. Well, then in February 13th of 2022, about 4:20 a.m., Lee entered her building near the corner of Grand and Crystal Streets, an intersection in the heart of New York City's first built and third largest Chinatown. Now, Mr. Nash, who had recently been living in a shelter in a nearby Bowery neighborhood, watched the victim from the street as she made her way inside. Then he silently followed her into the foyer of the apartment building and into the stairwell. As Lee opened the door to her unit, Nash ran up behind her, shoved his way in, and then attempted to sexually assault Miss Lee. 2 minutes later, neighbors dialed 911, describing the sounds of a struggle, including a woman's voice screaming for help. Officers were about 3 blocks away. They arrived, and they heard her calling for help. When the police first arrived, they spotted Mr. Nash with a yellow object in his hand while trying to exit through a window, but he went back inside when the police were on the roof as well. Anyway, officers finally made their way through the victim's front door and found Nash hiding under a mattress. A bloodied, yellow-handled kitchen knife was found behind a dresser. Now, the deceased woman's body, Miss Lee, was found in her bathtub with at least 40 stab wounds to her torso, head, and neck. Now, on June 18th, Mr. Nash pled guilty to second-degree murder and burglary in the first degree as a sexually motivated felony. And then on Tuesday, the killer received 30 years to life in prison for his acts. Seems a little low to me. I get it, 30 to life, but he's only 27. I would have gone higher. One of the worst cases I've ever handled, ladies and gentlemen, was a situation where literally a man, my client, spotted a young woman whose hands were full. He followed her through her apartment and then pushed his way through the apartment and then did very, very bad things to this woman. I cannot stress this enough. I always stress this to my daughter. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware. If something's not right, somebody's following you, yell like hell, fight like hell, don't submit. All right, next, a weird case where dad is charged for his missing daughter that he reported missing. Does that make sense? So a father who reported his daughter missing and held a news conference after her return was arrested last Friday on charges of child abduction. Now, the Monterey Park Police Department there in California announced Friday that Jeffrey Chow was taken into custody on suspicion of child abduction, conspiracy, and falsifying police reports. Now, Chow's 15-year-old daughter was reported missing to the police department on July 16th. She reportedly left her house that day at around 5:30 p.m. and was seen on video footage riding her bike in El Sereno less than an hour later. Her family became concerned when she failed to show up at her aunt's house that night. Now, the teen was found a week later on July 23rd in Glendale, and Chow spoke alongside his attorney at a news conference that day, thanking the public for their help and assistance in finding his daughter. Anyway, a passerby in Glendale noticed the teen and recognized her from the missing persons reports that were on TV. Now, according to a local TV studio, the teen went to their studio and spoke to police. The witness who called the police after seeing her told the channel that the teen was very upset, mostly about not being able to tell her story. Anyway, the witness, identified only as Rochelle, stated to the news organization, "What struck me immediately was how self-possessed she was, sound of mind, very articulate, very clear on what the situation was, and she was very clear on, I've come to the news channel to tell my story. No one else will listen to me." Anyway, Chow and his wife are reportedly going through a contentious divorce and a custody battle over the 15-year-old girl. Anyway, the wife went to court on July 15th, on the day before their daughter went missing, and filed a restraining order against the husband. The wife won full custody the next day, and the mother said in a statement that she believed Chow coached their daughter to make false accusations against the mother, and continues to thwart and undermine their relationship between the mother and daughter. Mom also said she had a close, loving relationship with the victim prior to her separation from Mr. Chow. The police need to continue to investigate. Divorce proceedings are always ugly, and you would not believe the allegations that people can come up with during those. They get ugly, nasty, and when they start trying to involve the children, it's disgusting. So you have adults who can't seem to resolve their differences. So they say, I want a complete stranger, a judge, to make parenting decisions for my kids. Wow. Next on the docket, yes, a murder in my neighborhood. Okay, yeah, it's like 6 blocks south of me, but, it gets everyone in the neighborhood all fired up, right? We had a guy that was doing things at the swimming pool in front of little girls. You would have thought this man committed murder the way the people are following the case. It's a little crazy. Well, now we have a murder by a college professor. Go figure. According to the Denver Police Department, Nicholas Mickelbus called 911 from his apartment on July 29th and reported that he'd found his wife on the ground bleeding and their infant daughter was not breathing. His wife was transported to the hospital where she was later pronounced dead. Their daughter was dead at the scene. Now, according to the Denver Police Department's statement that they issued, Mr. Mickelbus was arrested for the murder of his wife after investigators found blunt force injuries on her that were inconsistent with Mr. Michelbus' story. Well, detectives also noticed bruising and blood on Mr. Michelbus' knuckles, along with scratches on his neck. And based upon information and evidence obtained, guess what? Mr. Michelbus was arrested and currently being held for investigation of 1 count of first-degree murder for the homicide of the adult female. Now, needless to say, it's going to probably include his daughter as well. We'll have to give him the presumption of innocence, but now I'm going to have to drive by there on the way home. Anyway, Mr. Michelbus is listed as an associate English professor at Regis University. That's right, the Jesuits. They're in Denver. Great school. Anyway, in his university bio, Mr. Michelbus describes himself as a linguist and interloper in the literature of post-classical and medieval culture who reconstructs prior visions of the world and the text through which past civilizations rose to consciousness of themselves. Hey, you know what? If you can get a job and get paid to do that, I guess you got to have somewhat intelligent, right? I guess stick to literature and not the killing business, allegedly. Anyway, charges are still pending, and based upon the investigation by the medical examiner, will determine if other charges are filed. All right, next on the docket, probably one of the dumbest things that I've ever seen passed as far as legislation. Okay, when people get out on bond these days, they're usually put on an ankle monitor. Okay, some jurisdictions run their own ankle monitoring business. Others contract it out. And everybody knows when they contract it out, it's usually like, the mayor's nephew or brother-in-law that just happened to get the contract, okay? And what happens is if somebody has a zone that they're not supposed to go in with the ankle monitor, they're supposed to alert the victim and the police and what have you, okay? Keep that in mind. And if things don't work, they tried their best. But anyway, take a listen to this story. So the owner of an employee of an ankle monitoring company is facing negligent homicide charges in the death of a woman whose husband murdered her and then killed himself, all the while free on bail and wearing the ankle monitor that he was ordered to wear by the court. So the ruling that came down from the Louisiana Supreme Court stems from the murder of Peggy Rayburn, who is 70, and her estranged husband, Marshall, who was 63, back in September of 2021. Now, the state alleges that Marshall Rayburn, while wearing a court-ordered electronic ankle monitor, repeatedly breached the perimeter of the residence of Peggy Rayburn, from whom he had been ordered to stay away. Ultimately, Marshall Rayburn shot and killed Peggy Rayburn and attempted to kill her neighbor as well. Now, the state further alleges that the electronic monitoring company detected Marshall Rayburn's perimeter breaches, stalking his estranged wife, but failed to inform law enforcement of this activity. And of course, the district attorney is saying that the ankle monitoring system failed the victim in this particular case, or the judge that let him out, or maybe the DA that didn't ask for a high enough bond, or maybe the little old lady that really irked him when he was crossing the street and said, I'm going to go get my ex-wife. Who knows? There's so many intervening factors. Anyway, let's continue. Anyway, the murder happened on the night of September 20th of 2021, and when Marshall Rayburns shot his wife in their home more than 100 miles northwest of New Orleans before turning the gun on himself. Now, the neighbor who had been trying to help, was also shot but survived. So Marshall Rayburn had been released from custody on a $100,000 bond. He had to wear an ankle monitor, and he was ordered to stay away about 3 weeks earlier after his arrest for the alleged rape of his wife. Now, Peggy Rayburn had recently learned that Marshall Rayburn had secretly drugged and raped her. And on the night of the murder, police say that he wrapped his ankle monitor in foil and duct tape so the signal wouldn't go off. Now, police allege the monitoring company had known that Marshall Rayburn repeatedly violated the perimeter but didn't alert the police. He blatantly broke the rules, the victim's son said, and he tested the system. He would ride by in certain areas just to see if it would get triggered, and the GPS data shows that he did that apparently. Well, a year after the murder, a rare negligent homicide charge was lodged against the owner of the Mississippi-based American Electronic Monitoring and an employee, with prosecutors saying they should have notified police when Marshall Rayburn's ankle monitor went off. Now, Marshall Rayburn had violated the restrainer as recently as 2 days before the killing, but faced no consequences. Now, the owner and the employee of the monitoring company appealed their case and won, with the appeals court saying that they could not be charged due to a lack of evidence. Well, this week, the Louisiana Supreme Court reversed that lower court's decision and let the charges go forward. Now, this comes as a new law in Louisiana aims to hold monitoring companies accountable with a penalty of fines and imprisonment for a provider that intentionally withholds or intentionally fails to report the timely information about a monitored offender. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, somebody should report that if that was their job to do. But is that criminal conduct? That's a bit of a stretch for me. You know, maybe the family has a lawsuit against them. Maybe the state or the city or the county or the parish should monitor themselves, and therefore they would have complete immunity and they couldn't be sued. But they contracted out because they think it'll be done cheaper and better by this independent company. And now the thing's turned ugly, even though the court, who let the guy out on a $100,000 bond for rape, and said, oh, but here's a no contact order, and he violated it. The husband violated it on his own. He could have cut the ankle monitor off, but he didn't. The reality of it is, ladies and gentlemen, when we start getting these, unique legal theories, starting holding parents responsible, right? Remember, we're talking about the Crumleys, right? When we start getting into negligence, that's a civil standard. Criminal law has been knowingly, recklessly, not negligence. Negligence needs to go away in criminal law. Because frankly, I think the DA should be held accountable. Why shouldn't he be held accountable? His office only argued for the $100,000 bond. Maybe they should have asked for $200,000 or $300,000 so the guy couldn't get out and reoffend. Do you see where the nonsense, it just never ends, ladies and gentlemen? It never ends. But I'm sure passing that law made somebody feel better. Is it really going to change anything? No. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Now, try not to have too many heroes because, heroes always disappoint. And let me give you an example of this. This is from Nampa, Idaho. The Nampa police are looking for a man accused of shoving an elderly man to the ground after an argument in the parking lot. The suspect is an actor known for his role as a Power Ranger. Heroes, they always let you down, right? Anyway, this is a live-action superhero kids show, and the actor Hector David Rivera had played the Green Power Ranger in the popular show, and he's being charged with misdemeanor battery after police said he pushed a man with a walker to the ground in a parking lot last Friday. And guess what? There's video of it that shows the altercation where a man in his early 60s is shoved to the ground. And police say that the pushing the man, the suspect drove away. Fortunately, the victim was not hurt. But see what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen? Hector David guy, a Power Ranger, a hero to lots and lots of kids out there. Well, he just let them all down. So therefore, that's why, Mr. Rivera, you are a dumb criminal of the day. All right? Superheroes need to be held to a higher standard, ladies and gentlemen. If we allow him to start pushing people around with no consequences, I think the entire society is doomed. That's all we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk. And remember, the Constitution matters.